Since the start of the summer, I've been streaming near enough every single day. And due to this, I'm starting to get a lot of questions about my YouTube and Twitch setup, and I'm always happy to answer people, but I figured it might just be easier to make a video explaining everything. In this first section of the video, I'm going to be going over the very basics regarding what equipment I use, some cheaper alternatives, and more. Just remember, I'm talking about my own experiences and knowledge regarding this topic, so keep that in mind. Also, timecodes will be available in the comments, so you can quickly jump between what you feel like is important to you. With that said, let's get stuck in. The main component of any streamer's setup is the computer. You can't do much without it. Although it is possible to stream using the sharing functions of your PlayStation 4 or Xbox One, but this video won't be covering those. But let's get back to talking about the computer. Since this is my YouTube/Twitch setup, I'll tell you the four main components that make up my computer. My motherboard is the Gigabyte GA Z170X Designare. CPU is an Intel Core i7-6700K running at 4.4 GHz. RAM is 16 gigs of Corsair DDR4 Vengeance LPX Red. And finally, my GPU is the EVGA GeForce GTX 1080 Gaming ACX 3.0 GB card. This current build of my computer was completed last summer and was an upgrade to my previous build, which consisted of cheaper and weaker hardware like a GTX 970, 8 gigs of DDR3 RAM, and so on. But you probably don't need to go for a build like the one I have now. Hell, I don't even do 4K gaming, and I still went for a GTX 1080. I'm no master with building entire computers, but you can find completed PC builds over on this website right here. This is PC Parts Picker. It's a fantastic website that I know a lot of my mates have used in the past. You can find completed builds and guides, sort them by price, ratings, and more. Seriously, if you want to dip your toe into the PC pool, then check this website out. It has everything you need to find all the bits and bobs for a solid computer, and at a price point that makes sense for you. Alright, so you got your computer, but what's next? Well, you're going to be needing a microphone, and this is going to be split into two mini sections, XLR and then USB. Since I'm using an XLR setup as of now, we'll start with that first. Here's the microphone I use. This is the Shure SM58 dynamic vocal microphone, and is what you've been listening to me speak through in this video. It's a fantastic microphone, built like a tank, and you've probably seen it everywhere. I'm talking concerts, podcasts, stand-up comedy shows, and more. It costs around £90 or so and is well worth it. But when it comes to XLR, you need something to plug your microphone into. If you want to make use of an XLR microphone in your setup, then you need what's called an audio interface. In short, they allow you to plug in your XLR microphone and use it. The one I use is the Scarlett Solo 2nd Generation Edition from Focusrite. It's small, doesn't get in the way, and like my microphone, also costs around the same price, which is £90 or so. This audio interface also acts as my computer's main playback and recording device, which allows me to monitor audio from my computer with my headphones of choice directly plugged in to the audio interface, and like mentioned before, record with my microphone. But there's something else I use too. A kind of middleman, which I will say now is not necessary, but something you can think about getting in the future. This is the DBX286S microphone preamp/processor. Now you might be thinking, what is that and why would I want a preamp if I already have an audio interface? Well, what this device allows me to have is the following: better sounding quality, more gain, lower noise, and being able to adjust the flavor of my voice with the various turn dials and features included in this preamp. Overall, this preamp allows me to improve my sound quality with the use of live processing, and doesn't mean I have to faff around with any plugins when streaming or recording. As I said before, a preamp is totally not needed if you're just starting out. It's just something you can think about for later on. If you want to know more about XLR microphones, preamps, and all the other things, then I suggest checking out these two videos from YouTuber Soul Brother Number 3. It has a fantastic amount of information and goes over everything you would need to know about the aforementioned topic. The only thing I would say about going XLR is that you may have to be prepared to spend that little smidge more than just going USB, but the difference in sound quality and range is mind-blowing. Moving on to the topic of USB microphones, it is the simplest and most often cheapest way, whether you want to get into Let's Plays or live streams. USB is a great alternative for those just starting out. Some microphones I would suggest checking out are the following. Blue Snowball, coming in at around £40 or so. The Blue Yeti, an upgrade over the Blue Snowball, which sits at around £100 or close to that. Or the Rode NT USB, which is around £20 more expensive than the Yeti. All three are great choices and microphones I've used in the past. When it comes to microphones, you have to think about your recording/streaming environment as well. Does sound travel all across your room? Is there an echo? And so on. The microphone is half the battle, the rest lies within your room and how sound travels around it. Okay, so we have your computer covered and your microphone. Next up is the webcam. Now, like the microphone, this isn't completely necessary, but when it comes to streaming, a lot of viewers like having a social element in the streams they watch. Now, I would argue that a microphone is absolutely needed when streaming, but webcams, well, you could go without one if you wanted to. But let's get into it. The webcam I've been using since 2014 is the Logitech C920. Capable of doing both 720 and 1080p, it's like the standard issue webcam for most streamers. Quality is good, and it does a decent job in low light situations too. You can't really go wrong with it, though the price point is still a little bit steep. He'll set you back somewhere around £50 or so. To be honest though, you're fine with getting any 720p capable webcam, and those usually cost around £30 or less. A good example is the Logitech C270. It's cheap and does 720p. You don't really need to go all crazy when it comes to your webcam. Just make sure you have some form of decent lighting, whether it be a desk lamp or something else in your room. Another aspect of streaming that people often forget is how much space you have available to you. A lot of people I know, and myself included, stream with a 2-monitor setup. This allows you to play the game on your primary monitor while having chat, stream settings, and so on the second monitor. Granted, some people don't have access to an extra monitor, so if you don't, I suggest you use your phone to read chat, a laptop, a tablet, or any other similar device that could act like a mini screen or second monitor. Okay, so with the important hardware out of the way, let's now move on to the topic of recording and broadcasting and what I use. My preferred program of choice is OBS Studio. It's simple to use if you put the time into learning it, it's customizable and overall just kind of awesome. Though if you want to look at an alternative program for streaming, I would suggest looking at XSplit. I've heard it's good, but I've never actually used it myself. Now I do want to warn you, the settings I'm about to show you are for my setup and not yours. These settings work for me and may very well not work for you. It all depends on your computer specs, internet speed, and what bitrate you've chosen. Which is what I'll show you guys right now, just so we can establish a foundation. Let's start with bitrate. This basically determines how much data you're going to be sending out. The higher the bitrate, the higher the quality should be. So, my upload rate or bitrate on OBS is 5500. A general rule of thumb is that 1000 bits rate equals 1 megabit per second, or so I've been told. So, if we look at my internet speeds again, we can notice that my upload is typically around 9 to 10 megabits per second. So it's perfectly reasonable for me to stream at my selected bitrate on OBS. If you want to know more about suggested streaming bitrates for different resolutions and frame rates, I strongly recommend you check out this website right here for all the information you need. It seriously helped me out in the past. Next up is resolution and frame rate. Like before, these two factors depend on your computer specs and internet speed. I always stream at 1080 60 FPS. This is mainly because I tend to play a lot of games that, on PC, will benefit from such resolutions and frame rates. And to be honest, I just like having the quality that 1080 60 offers. The same goes for certain console games too that can also run at 60 FPS or 1080i, for example. Though if you want to stream at these settings, you must remember that you're trying to send out a lot of data to the viewers, and you're also putting quite a bit of work on your computer too. So be mindful, and once again, check out the website I mentioned before for more information. Just to recap, here are my settings for streaming, and just as a bonus, here's my settings for recording gameplay through OBS as well. So, you can now technically stream and record gameplay. Well, at least I know I can. So what's next? Well, let's run over a few more things that you may want to consider adding to your streams. And just as a heads up, I stream to both YouTube and Twitch at the same time, but more on that later. Let's start with Streamlabs.com. This is probably the most useful addition to my streams. It acts as the notifications during stream for whenever someone follows on Twitch, subscribes on YouTube, donates, and more. It also allows me to include a donation bar, which can be seen below the game, and a donation ticker that can also show all my latest donators too. Lastly, Streamlabs is the service that allows people to donate to me during streams. You can set that up easily by inputting your PayPal or card details into the site, and then everything else is done for you. There are tons more features that Streamlabs allows you to make use of and tinker around with. You can even use it to display chat, though I don't even use it for that anyways. But the things I mentioned before, that's what I primarily use Streamlabs for. Everything is super customizable and it's easy to set up, so go ahead, watch a YouTube tutorial if you need to, and just mess around with it. Next is display in chat. Now, you could use Streamlabs to do that for you, but it's not that helpful for me. Like I mentioned before, I stream to both YouTube and Twitch at the same time, so displaying just Twitch chat isn't going to be any good for me. I need to see both, therefore I use Restream. Now this ties into another topic of which platform you want to stream on, YouTube or Twitch. Well, I stream to both using a free service called Restream, which allows me to stream to multiple broadcast platforms at the same time. With me, I stream to only Twitch and YouTube. I do this because it expands my audience and gives me instant backups of my streams on my YouTube channel for archival purposes. But back to chat. Restream contains its own chat client that users can use, allowing me to show both YouTube and Twitch chat on my overlay. So just as a little recap, Streamlabs for notifications and donations, and Restream for streaming to both YouTube and Twitch while also showing chat from both websites. Lastly is Nightbot. Now there are tons of bots that you can use while streaming for various functions, but for me, Nightbot is handy because I've set it so that every 30 minutes it reminds my viewers to read the rules if they're new and posts all my important social links too. There we have it, a walkthrough of the hardware I use for streaming PC games and the software. Just remember though, this is my setup and further research should be done by you when trying to get yourself up and running for streaming, but hopefully this section of the video has helped you. You may have noticed that the title of this video also says Game Room Tour, and while that's true, it kind of isn't, because what I'm going to do is show you what consoles I have, what's special about a few of them, and how I go about streaming and recording from those consoles too. Let's start with Sony. First up are the three PlayStation 2s I own. The PlayStation 2 on the left is the last model of the Slim. I purchased this brand new, boxed and everything, from a site called GameSeek. This was soon after finding out that the Slim was no longer being produced, and with that I really wanted an uber fresh console that I knew wouldn't be breaking down anytime soon, or hopefully anyways. The Slim in the middle is an older revision of the Slim, and I picked this one up because it allows me to play backups via burned CDs and to make use of free mech boot, which is basically what allows you to play all those backups of your favorite games. Finally, as the making of this video, my most recent pickup, an original fat PlayStation 2. The main reason I purchased this was because of the PlayStation 2's expansion bay. Now, normally this is used for the network adapter that would have allowed you to play games online, but I have a better reason to use it. Playing backups directly from 2.5 and 3.5 inch hard drives. Now this is amazing because not only does it mean I don't have to touch any of my actual copies of games, but this means loading times are usually decreased, and it's just awesome having my entire collection on a single hard drive. Also, it's better than playing via burned discs since you don't have to stress out the laser reader on the PlayStation 2. Moving up a generation are the two PlayStation 3s I own. The first up is the PS3 Slim. Not much to say about it other than it's a fantastic console, provided me a ton of great memorable moments in games such as Siren Blood Curse, MGS4, and more. Next up is this OG, fat PlayStation 3 that comes with a 40GB hard drive, and yes, it's also hacked to play backups. I use this old 1TB external drive to store my games on. Pretty cool, right? Last up is my PS4. not much to say other than it's a pretty cool and thankfully small console. A few games worth picking up for it are games like Until Dawn, Bloodborne, and EDF. Alrighty, Microsoft is up next and we can start with this. My original Crystal Xbox that is also modded with a 500GB drive so I can play all the backups I need and more. Then I have the last model of the Xbox 360, which I believe is called the Xbox 360E. And yeah, I also have an Xbox One S, which to be honest doesn't get much use anymore, but at least it looks pretty darn cool and offers 360 backwards compatibility. Okay, rounding this console highlight off is Nintendo. Starting with the N64, my first ever games console. You probably also noticed my EverDrive 64. This allows me to put my N64 ROM backups in a microSD card and play right through the cart. Fantastic for playing backups, obviously, ROM hacks, and just having to faff around with your collection. We now move on to the lovely little Nintendo Wii. This console is also hacked to play backups and emulators. I actually have two separate 1TB drives for both GameCube and Wii backups. And finally, the last bit of gaming hardware I own, my hacked new 3DS. Because screw carrying a case full of games when I can have all the games I need backed up onto my 120 something gig micro SD card. Since I've already gone over how I stream PC games, I'm going to quickly tell you about what I use to record my console games, and it's with this, the Razer Ripsaw. This is probably the best capture card I have ever used. It's USB 3.0 captured, which means zero latency, so I can just power up my console, hook it up to the capture card and play directly through OBS. No TV required. Also, and this is just a general heads up for anyone playing consoles such as the PlayStation 2, Wii, Xbox, or similar consoles from that generation. For the love of God, do not use composite cables. They are shit. Please do yourself a favor and use component. It's the best, and if you use composite, you should feel bad for yourself. Well everyone, that about wraps up the video. If you have any questions about my setup, consoles, or anything else, please feel free to comment down below and I'll try my best to answer. Catch you guys later, and thanks for watching.